Gypsy Rose Blanchard spent years behind bars, knowing that almost every phone call she made could be recorded. But apparently, that didn't stop her and Ryan Anderson from having conversations they probably never imagined millions of strangers would one day hear. And now, some of those prison calls are circulating online. At first, they might sound like private conversations between two people in a relationship. But the deeper you get into them, the stranger they become. Because one recording involves Ryan's job working with children. Another contains a confession about his own family that he specifically tells Gypsy can never get out. And another raises questions about just how far Gypsy was allegedly willing to go when she became fixated on a woman Ryan worked with. But it's what happens when Ryan begins talking about the children he taught that has caused some of the strongest backlash. And once you hear the way both of them react during this conversation, you'll understand why.
Did you hear what my principal was telling me when I got you on the phone? Like at 11?
No.
All right. Well, let me tell you, that lady gonna tick me off. Like, I was telling her she, like, observed me during the worst class. Like, this class is full of the idiots who don't know how to do anything for themselves. Like, at all. I mean, like, every day they're like, can I have a pencil? I'm like, you know where the pencils are at. And they're like, look at you like, I don't know where the pencils are. All right, so they're the biggest idiots that I got, and I'm like, okay, so I'm explaining how to fold this piece of paper, and I told them I want like a third, so fold it one way and then another way. I want 3 columns. And baby, you'd have thought I told them to do calculus. Oh, they were like, huh? What do you mean fold it? I was like, you are a bunch of fucking idiots. Like, I was getting ready to be like, you fucking moron.
What, you didn't say?
My principal was there. No, my principal was there. So I helped them and everything, but in my head, I'm like, you fucking moron. You know, but it's great because my principal saw all the shit that they do and, like, called, like, 4 of them out in the pod and talked to them. And in the moment she leaves, they act up again. I'm just like, you sorry sons of bitches. I got one class that's quiet. Out of the whole, well, 2. You consider my first hour, but all the rest of them suck.
That wasn't a public interview. There wasn't a journalist sitting across from them. There wasn't a camera in their faces or a publicist telling them what to say. It was just Gypsy and Ryan talking to each other. And that's precisely why people are paying so much attention to these recordings. Because at the time, Ryan wasn't simply some anonymous person communicating with an inmate. He was a teacher.
Damn it, where's your parents? Like, I want to say that so bad. Like, God damn it, where are your fucking people? Because, I mean, it's like, what the
I was thinking of a meatball with trap house.
Baby.
What? You were thinking it.
I was not. I was thinking, like, at work, working. You were sitting there thinking at the crack house. Baby. That's what I was thinking at work, and you were thinking crack house. There's that KKK robe. Where's it at?
You were out yesterday.
Oh, yeah. I wore that son of a bitch.
I told Rusty that at work.
What'd you tell her?
I told her what you said.
What'd I say?
I said, we're not racist, but the N-word sure did come out a couple times.
I love that you told Lucky that. We're not racist. Maybe you're the most racist person I know.
That is not true. Your cousin.
Say what? I was doing what?
Isn't your cousin the one that... No, your brother.
My brother.
Yeah.
My brother's more racist. Yeah, I guess you're right. My brother's more racist than you or me.
Yeah.
But
You're
you're
so
up there.
No, I'm not. I play.
I do too. I do too, baby. I teach black kids. I was racist. I wasn't teaching black kids shit. Well, I'm telling you, baby, being a teacher's hard. It's not an easy job.
Well, I mean, what's the difference between Hamilton and this one?
Well, this one is nice because I only have to come up with one lesson, and it's 6th grade, so it's not anything difficult. I just spend the most of my time arguing and fucking cocksucking black sons of bitches.
And according to the material circulating from these calls, some of the children he worked with were black. That context makes what you just heard considerably harder to dismiss as nothing more than an offensive joke taken out of context. But even that conversation isn't the one Ryan seemed most worried about getting out. Because in another call, the tone changes. Ryan suddenly brings up something from his past. And this time, he's not laughing about what might happen if people find out. He's worried about one person in particular, his mother. Listen to what he tells Gypsy she can never reveal.
You said something the other day about my stepmom. I was like, whoa, that ain't going on camera.
No.
You better not. I'll be like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, she crazy.
She's crazy.
Yeah, like, maybe that can't get out. Just so you know, that can't get out.
I'm not dumb. I would never do that.
Okay, I didn't think you would, but I'm just saying, I think that would fuck my mom up, I think.
Ryan Anderson, like Gypsy Rose Blanchard's ex-husband, allegedly slept with his stepmom, like his real stepmom, like his father's wife. I don't know if it's still his stepmom or what. That's kind of like my facial reaction here. I heard Ryan, according to Audrey on here, her username is like Chicken Nugget Lover. Ryan is supposedly like trying to sue Audrey over this. I've heard allegedly. I don't think that there's anything you can sue over this for, because Gypsy was a ward of the state. Like it's not, it's not like Ryan was dating a girl who was out in the real world and like at home and like someone secretly recorded their phone calls and like released them. Then I would understand wanting to sue if someone like releases your like private phone calls at home. But when you're in prison, there's no expectation of privacy. You know what I mean? Like, if you're writing it like a letter to Gypsy or whatever, like, that pretty sure they like read your letters and stuff like before even giving it to Gypsy. I'm pretty sure. So yeah, you don't really have an expectation of privacy when you're on the phone with someone who's in prison, and obviously not. I mean, as far as I am aware, these prison phone calls were obtained fully legally, 100% legally. I don't think you could sue over them. But that is crazy what Ryan said to Gypsy in one of those phone calls about his stepmom. I'm speechless.
And that's where this story starts becoming much more complicated than a collection of offensive prison calls. Because to understand why Ryan was telling these things to Gypsy Rose Blanchard in the first place, you have to understand how their relationship began. But we don't need to go all the way back through Gypsy's story. There is just one piece that matters here. When Ryan Anderson first contacted Gypsy, she was still serving her sentence for her role in the killing of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. By then, Gypsy's case was already infamous. For years, Dee Dee had presented her daughter as severely ill. Gypsy was made to use a wheelchair and underwent medical treatment while being kept under extraordinary control by her mother. Eventually, Gypsy began an online relationship with Nicholas Godejohn. In 2015, Godejohn killed Dee Dee after he and Gypsy planned the attack. Gypsy later pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and was sentenced to 10 years in prison. That's where Ryan entered her life. Their relationship developed while Gypsy was incarcerated, and the two eventually married before her release.
Well, when you said I do, I was like, thank God. I knew you would, but like, still, it's still a big moment, I'm so happy we got married.
Me too.
Ryan and I's relationship has not been a bucket of roses and sunshine. But if I can handle the stress and the trauma and everything that my mother put me through growing up and in my adulthood, going through prison, I feel like marriage is something that I can tackle on.
When Gypsy walked out of prison in December 2023, Ryan was suddenly standing beside one of the most famous true crime figures in America. And publicly, the story practically wrote itself. Gypsy had survived years of abuse. She had served years in prison. Now she was getting another chance at life with a husband who appeared willing to stand beside her through all of it. But these calls give the public access to something interviews after her release couldn't. The way Gypsy and Ryan interacted when they weren't speaking to an audience.
But if they're getting better, but they still suck.
Well, what'd she say? You couldn't say what she said.
Oh, my bad. All right. Okay. I was just telling you that they suck. Okay. Well, like, so she saw the issue that they were having with folding the paper that way. All right, so then she looked at me and she said, well, to fix that problem, have the paper already folded for them. I'm like, baby, I'm like, they're in the fucking 6th grade. Like, I have to fold their paper for them because they can't figure it out. I'm like, they're in the fucking 6th grade. What else you want me to do? Hold their hand in the bathroom?
No, she just needs to make an example. So you do it with them, or
No,
like
baby, no, baby, you're not following. No, I did that. I showed them how to do it. Like, I said, God, you fold it like this, and then you fold it like this, and then it makes 3. Like, I'm talking like I did it 4 or 5 times. And then she said, instead of that, pass it out already folded for them. Yeah, they're in the 6th grade and they can't fold paper the right way. Are you serious? Y'all want them to learn, but they can't fold paper?
And one particular situation involving Ryan's workplace becomes especially uncomfortable when you remember Gypsy's history. Because according to the conversation, there was a woman Ryan worked with who had somehow become a problem, and Gypsy apparently wasn't content to simply ignore her. What happened next concerned people at Ryan's workplace enough that someone confronted him about it, and then that co-worker made a comparison Ryan clearly did not want to hear. Listen closely.
I told her, I said, my wife won't do that again, because here's the thing, Gaspard came in, and she was on the group text that me and her were texting last night, you know, like about the situation. And she came in and said, it is bad. I was like, what is bad? She said, your wife shouldn't have done that. I said, well, you know, I told her that she shouldn't do that anymore, blah, blah, blah. And I said, but she didn't say anything bad. And she said, get this, baby. This is one thing we got to be careful about. Miss Gaspard said, how did your wife even find her? I said, well, I was like, first off, I was like, I talk about work. You know, I was like, I said, it's not hard. And she's like, no, Miss Holmes' account's private. I said, no, it's not. I said, it says teacher at Southwest Charter.
Did you tell them that she sent you a friend request?
Yeah. You know, like I told Miss Gaspard, I was like, plus, I was like, she's not private. I was like, we're good. Like, we're on Facebook. You know, I was like, she sent me a friend. I was like, it's not hard to find Miss Holmes. I was like, she might think she has her private, but she doesn't. And then she said, well, it's bad. Now, this is Gaspard talking, not Holmes. Gaspard said, it's bad because your wife got a guy to kill her mom. I said, no. I said, we ain't going there.
What?
Yeah, she said, because it looks bad because your wife got a guy to kill her mom. I said, no. I said, my wife didn't say nothing threatening. I said, that dude lives in the mountains. I was like, we're not going to go there. We're not going to say that. I put an end to that right there.
That final part is important, because Ryan's colleague appears to be referencing the most infamous part of Gypsy's past. Gypsy had previously formed an online relationship with Nicholas Godjohn, who ultimately killed DD. So when someone at Ryan's workplace became concerned about another person allegedly becoming involved in an online dispute connected to Gypsy, the association was obvious to them. Ryan's response is also revealing. Rather than entertaining that comparison, he immediately shuts it down. But the calls still leave another question hanging over the entire situation. Who exactly was Gypsy communicating with outside the prison? And what role were those people playing in conflicts happening in Ryan's life? And that's where claims surrounding these recordings become particularly messy. Some commentary surrounding the calls alleges that an outside associate with a troubling criminal history became involved. Those claims need to be treated carefully unless independently verified. But what we can hear is Ryan discussing the situation and defending Gypsy when his colleagues question what happened. And somehow, the calls still get stranger. Because eventually, the conversation turns away from Ryan's workplace entirely. Gypsy begins discussing morality, specifically, the value of human life. And given why she was sitting in prison during this conversation, what she says next immediately became one of the most controversial clips being circulated.
My mom and dad had voted for Trump, and because Ken is for Trump, well, not necessarily for Trump, but he voted for Trump, and Robert is against Trump. And I'm like, I'm just so not political whatsoever. And I said, but I do have a few issues that I stand on. And I said I'm pro-life. I believe that a marriage should be between a man and a woman. And Robert's like, whoa, okay, back it up to you're pro-life. So why are you pro-life?
I was about to say, you had to have this back up on that.
And I was like, well, I don't believe in abortion. I'm like,
Right.
if you have a 16-year-old girl and she knows that, you know, she's having unprotected sex and she knows that there's a chance that she can get pregnant, you know, well, that was her decision to take that risk.
Also, that's her parents' fault for not educating her.
Exactly. So it's like, you know, I just think that, you know, it's murder.
That clip doesn't require someone else to tell you what to think, but it does expose a contradiction that critics immediately seized upon. Gypsy describes abortion in moral terms and talks about responsibility for taking a life. Yet she was serving a prison sentence because she had helped plan the killing of her own mother. Of course, Gypsy's case has never been morally simple. What Dee Dee did to her was horrific. And understanding that abuse was a major reason so many people sympathized with Gypsy, even after learning about her involvement in Dee Dee's death. But understanding why someone committed a crime isn't the same thing as pretending the crime never happened. And that tension has followed Gypsy ever since she became famous. Victim or perpetrator? For years, people tried to force her story into one category or the other. These calls make that even harder. But there's another reason this story has suddenly exploded again. It's not just what was said, it's what happened when people started hearing it. When old private conversations become public years later, there are usually several ways a celebrity can respond. Apologize, explain the context, say you've changed, or say nothing. Ryan's reaction attracted attention for a different reason. Rather than focusing exclusively on why people were offended by what they were hearing, criticism emerged that he was focusing attention on the people responsible for releasing or circulating the calls. And that created another problem. Because once the audio is public, attacking the leak doesn't make the content of the recording disappear. People had heard it for themselves. And by this point, they weren't reacting to one isolated clip. They were looking at a collection of conversations involving race, Ryan's students, his family, his workplace, Gypsy's moral views, and the way the two interacted when they apparently believed these conversations would remain largely private. And that is why these calls matter more than a typical celebrity leak. They're colliding with an image Gypsy spent years building. When Gypsy left prison, public fascination with her was enormous. Millions of people knew what Dee Dee had done to her. Many viewed Gypsy primarily through the lens of the abused child she once was. There were interviews, documentaries, social media accounts, red carpets, relationship updates, and millions of followers. Gypsy wasn't simply released from prison. She became a celebrity. And celebrity created something Gypsy had never really experienced before: control over her own public image. For most of her childhood, Dee Dee controlled the story told about Gypsy. Then prosecutors, attorneys, and documentaries told different versions of her story. After prison, Gypsy finally had the ability to tell her own. That's what makes private recordings potentially so damaging. A polished interview shows you what somebody wants to tell the public. A private conversation can show something very different. And there's one detail about these calls that's easy to overlook. Many of them aren't dramatic. That's actually what makes certain moments more uncomfortable. There isn't always an argument. There isn't necessarily someone losing control. Some of the most controversial comments appear in ordinary conversation. And when something shocking is treated as normal between two people, audiences often learn more from the reaction than from the statement itself. Which brings us back to the first call. Ryan makes comments involving race while discussing his work. Gypsy doesn't sound shocked. In the circulating audio, she participates in the conversation. Then another call reveals something Ryan desperately wants kept within the relationship. Another brings his workplace into their private dynamic. Another has Gypsy discussing the morality of taking life. Individually, every recording can be argued over. Context can be debated. Intent can be debated. People can argue about whether someone has changed since the recording was made. But collectively, they create a much harder question. Which version was real? Was the public seeing a carefully packaged version of Gypsy and Ryan after her release? Or are people now taking old private conversations and using them to define two people years later? The answer may be somewhere between those extremes. Gypsy can have been horribly abused by Dee Dee and still be responsible for her own behavior. Ryan can have supported Gypsy through prison and still be held accountable for things heard in these recordings. Those realities don't cancel each other out. And perhaps that's why the Gypsy Rose story refuses to disappear. Every time the public thinks it finally understands who she is, another layer emerges. First, America knew the sick little girl in the wheelchair. Then came the revelation that many of her illnesses had been fabricated. Then came Dee Dee's death. Then Nicholas Gaudejon. Then prison. Then Ryan. Then freedom. Then celebrity. And now we're hearing conversations from the years when most of the world couldn't see what was happening behind those prison walls. But there's one final thing worth remembering. These recordings don't come with a narrator telling us what every sentence means. Some claims being made online about the calls remain allegations or interpretations, and snippets can never show every moment of a years-long relationship. That's why the original audio matters. You've now heard parts of it yourself. And ultimately, the most interesting question isn't what another person thinks about Gypsy Rose. It's whether hearing Gypsy and Ryan in their own words changes what you think about them. Because if these calls prove anything, it's that Gypsy Rose Blanchard's story didn't end when the prison doors opened. In some ways, that may have been when the most complicated chapter began. And with more recordings continuing to circulate online, we may still not have heard the conversation that changes this story the most. If these recordings changed the way you see Gypsy Rose and Ryan Anderson, let me know in the comments. And if more of these prison calls surface, we'll be looking closely at what they actually contain, not just the headlines surrounding them. Subscribe to Glossip because this story may be far from over.